My fiancé's mother went through my phone at our engagement party, so I made sure she found exactly what I wanted her to see. I'd known Delilah was going to do it. She'd been eyeing my phone all night, the way a cat watches a mouse hole. My fiancé, Brennan, was too busy celebrating with his college friends to notice his mother circling like a shark. It started 3 months earlier when I overheard her on the phone with her sister. "I don't trust her," she said. "She's hiding something." Women like her always are. Women like me, meaning women who didn't come from money, who worked their way through state school, who didn't summer in the Hamptons or winter in Aspen. I'd been nothing but kind to Delilah, laughed at her jokes, complimented her taste, showed up early to family dinners to help cook. None of it mattered. She'd decided I was a gold digger the moment Brennan brought me home. The thing is, I actually loved him. Brennan was kind, funny, and treated me like an equal. But his mother saw dollar signs in my eyes instead of the genuine affection I felt for her son. So when I caught her trying to guess my passcode during Thanksgiving dinner, I knew exactly what to do. I spent 2 weeks creating the perfect trap. First, I changed my lock screen to a photo of Brennan and me. Sweet. Innocent. Then I set my passcode to his birthday. The most obvious choice. I wanted her to get in easily. Next, I filled my phone with carefully curated content. Text threads with my best friend discussing how excited I was about the wedding. Photos of me volunteering at the animal shelter. Research about Brennan's favorite authors so I could buy him thoughtful birthday gifts. But the real masterpiece was the fake conversation. I created a contact under my friend's name and filled it with a staged text exchange. Messages about how I'd overheard Delilah's private conversations, how she'd been embezzling from her own charity foundation, how she'd been having an affair with her husband's business partner for 3 years. Every word was true. I'd spent months gathering evidence, receipts, photos, recorded phone calls. I'd consulted with a lawyer to make sure everything was admissible. But I needed Delilah to discover it herself. I needed her to panic. At the engagement party, I excused myself to the restroom and left my phone on the gift table. I watched from around the corner as Delilah glanced around nervously, then snatched it up. She tried the passcode, got in on the first attempt. Her face went pale as she scrolled through the messages. I timed my return perfectly. Just as she'd finished reading, I appeared beside her. "Find anything interesting?" I asked sweetly. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Her hand flew to her chest. The phone rang, and I thought, "You thought you'd violate my privacy to find dirt on me?" Brennan appeared at my side, his face confused. "What's going on?" I picked up my phone and pulled up the conversation for him to see. "Your mother went through my phone. She found some information I'd gathered about her." Delilah's eyes widened with panic. "Brennan, darling, this is all a misunderstanding. She's trying to turn you against me." "Mom," Brennan said slowly, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Did you go through her phone? I had to protect you. She's after your money." I opened my banking app and turned it toward them both. "I make $90,000 a year. I have $47,000 in savings and zero debt. Your son isn't my meal ticket. He's my partner." Then I opened my evidence folder. "But your mother? She's stolen over $200,000 from the Delilah Foundation. She's been funneling money to an account shared with your father's business partner, Terrence." Brennan looked like I'd punched him. Delilah looked like she might vomit. "That's not... How did you... I'm a forensic accountant," I said calmly. "It's literally my job to find financial discrepancies." The room had gone silent. Everyone was staring. Delilah grabbed Brennan's arm. "She's manipulating you. She planted evidence. She's trying to destroy our family." I handed my phone to Brennan. "There's more. Photos, bank statements, recorded conversations, all legally obtained." As Brennan scrolled through months of documentation, his face transformed from confusion to horror to rage. "Mom," he whispered, "tell me this isn't real." Delilah's lawyer's smile finally cracked. "I can explain everything." "You better," said a new voice. We all turned to see Brennan's father standing in the doorway, his face like stone. Brennan's aunt stood beside him, holding her own phone up. "I've been listening on speaker," she said coldly. "The whole board has." The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Brennan's father, Gregory, stepped into the room slowly, each footstep deliberate. He was a man who'd built an empire through careful calculation, and right now he was calculating exactly how much his wife had destroyed. "Everyone out," he said quietly, "except family." The guests moved quickly. Some grabbed their coats without saying goodbye. Others whispered as they filed toward the door. I watched our carefully planned celebration dissolve in real time. "Not you," Gregory said when I started to follow the crowd. "Your family, or you will be." Delilah's face had gone from pale to gray. She sank into the nearest chair, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the armrests. Brennan's aunt, Patricia, walked over and connected her phone to the speaker system. Voices filled the room, board members I recognized from company events, the CFO, the legal counsel. All of them had heard everything. "Delilah," Patricia said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "We've been concerned about the foundation's finances for 6 months. Donations were down, but expenses kept climbing. You assured us everything was fine." "It was fine," Delilah stammered. "There were legitimate $200,000, Gregory interrupted, "over 3 years, to an account you share with Terrence." He pulled out his own phone and held it up. Bank statement, transfer records, screenshots that matched exactly what I'd found. "I've had my own investigator looking into this for 2 months, he said, after Patricia noticed irregularities in the quarterly reports. My stomach dropped. I wasn't the only one who'd been digging. Brennan was still scrolling through my phone, his face getting paler with each swipe. He stopped on a photo, Delilah and Terrence at a restaurant, his hand covering hers on the table. The timestamp showed it was taken during a supposed business trip to Boston. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Delilah's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, not the calculated kind she used to get her way. "Brennan, please. You have to understand." "How long?" 5 years, she whispered. The number hit like a physical blow. 5 years of lies. 5 years of family dinners where she sat across from Gregory and smiled. 5 years of charity galas where she gave speeches about integrity and community values. Gregory's laugh was hollow. 5 years. While I worked 80-hour weeks to keep this family comfortable, while I trusted you to manage the foundation I built in my mother's name, he turned to me. Show me everything. I pulled up my evidence folder. Months of work laid out in chronological order. Bank transfers, hotel receipts, phone records showing hundreds of calls to Terrence, photos of them together, at restaurants, entering hotels, getting into his car. But the most damning evidence was the recordings. I'd installed a voice-activated recorder in Delilah's home office after overhearing her on the phone that first time. 3 months of conversations. Her and Terrence planning their future together. Her complaining about Gregory's boring personality. Her laughing about how easy it was to manipulate the foundation's books. She thought I was too stupid to notice, I said quietly. That I was just some broke girl dazzled by the money. Patricia was already texting someone, her fingers flying across her screen. The board wants an emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. They'll want documentation, Gregory said. Can you send me copies of everything? I nodded and started forwarding files to his email. Each one felt like a nail in Delilah's coffin. Part of me felt guilty. She was going to be my mother-in-law. But the bigger part remembered every condescending comment, every suspicious glance, every time she'd made me feel like I didn't belong. Brennan finally looked up from my phone. When did you start investigating? The day after Thanksgiving, when I caught her trying to unlock my phone. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? I asked gently. Before you had proof? His silence was answer enough. Delilah had spent years building her image as the perfect mother, the dedicated philanthropist, the devoted wife. My word against hers would have torn us apart. I needed the evidence to speak for itself, I continued. I needed you to see it with your own eyes. Delilah finally found her voice. This is illegal. Recording people without consent is perfectly legal in this state, Patricia interrupted, as long as one party knows about it. And since the recordings were made in your own home, there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. I'd checked with 3 different lawyers before I started, covered every legal angle, made sure nothing could be thrown out or used against me. Gregory was reading through the bank statements, his jaw clenching tighter with each line. The gala last spring, the one where we raised $100,000 for children's heart research. What about it? Delilah asked weakly. You transferred $30,000 to your account the next day, marked it as administrative fees. Those were legitimate. Administrative fees are capped at 8% per our bylaws. You took 30%. He kept scrolling. The summer fundraiser, the winter auction, every single event, you've been skimming from sick children. That detail hit different. The foundation funded pediatric cardiac research and helped families afford life-saving surgeries. Delilah hadn't just stolen from her family. She'd stolen from dying kids. Brennan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need air. He walked out onto the balcony. I started to follow, but Gregory shook his head. Give him a minute. This is a lot to process. Patricia was still on her phone, coordinating with the board. They want to involve the authorities. This isn't just an internal matter anymore. No, Gregory said. Not yet. Let me talk to our attorneys first. Gregory, she committed fraud. Grand larceny. This has to be reported. I know. His voice cracked slightly. Just give me 24 hours to get our affairs in order. Delilah finally broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. The perfect facade shattered, but I felt no satisfaction watching her cry, just a hollow tiredness. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she choked out. It started with just a few thousand. Terrence was having financial problems and Don't, Gregory said sharply. Don't make excuses. You made choices. Every single transfer was a choice. He turned to me. How did you figure it out? The affair? I saw them together at a coffee shop 6 months ago. Terrence had his arm around her and they were laughing. It seemed too familiar for business partners. I pulled out my phone and showed him the first photo I'd taken that day. Grainy, taken from across the street, but clear enough to see Delilah leaning into Terrence with her eyes closed. I followed them twice after that. Once to a hotel. Once to a house in the suburbs. His vacation rental. Jesus, Gregory muttered. You're thorough. I had to be. She'd already decided I was the enemy. If I was wrong, she'd have used it to drive Brennan and me apart. Patricia looked at me with something like respect. You could have just walked away. Found some nice guy without complicated family drama. I love Brennan, I said simply. He deserves to know the truth about his mother. And those kids your foundation helps? They deserve better than a thief. Brennan came back inside, his face red from crying. I want to talk to her alone. Gregory shook his head. Son, alone, Brennan repeated firmly. Everyone else out. Now. We filed out slowly. Patricia squeezed my hand as we walked into the hallway. Gregory looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. We stood in the corridor, listening to muffled voices through the door. Brennan's rising in anger. Delilah's desperate pleading. The sound of something breaking. Maybe a glass, maybe a vase. He loved her so much, Gregory said quietly. She was everything to him. This is going to destroy him. Not forever, I said. He's stronger than you think. How do you know? Because he chose to look at the evidence instead of choosing blind loyalty. That takes strength. Patricia's phone buzzed. The board's attorney. They're filing an official complaint with the state attorney general tomorrow morning, unless we can provide a compelling reason not to. Like what? Gregory asked bitterly. My wife's a thief and a liar. There's no good reason to protect her. There might be a way to handle this that doesn't result in criminal charges, Patricia said carefully. If she agrees to pay back every penny, resign from the board, and sign away any claim to marital assets. No, I interrupted. She needs to face real consequences. They both looked at me. Those families who donated money thought they were helping sick children. Delilah betrayed their trust. If we sweep this under the rug, what message does that send? The message, Patricia said slowly, is that we protect our own, even when they're wrong, especially then. I shook my head. I can't be part of a family that values reputation over integrity. Then maybe you shouldn't marry into this family, Patricia said sharply. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Gregory put a hand on his sister's arm. Patricia, that's enough. Is it? She comes into our lives, tears apart our family, and now she's giving us ultimatums about justice? I didn't tear anything apart, I said calmly. Delilah did that herself. I just turned on the light so everyone could see. The door opened. Brennan stood there, his eyes red and swollen. She admitted everything. The affair, the money, all of it. What do you want to do? Gregory asked. I want to go home, with my fiancé. He took my hand and led me toward the elevator. Behind us, I heard Patricia say something sharp, but Brennan didn't slow down. In the car, neither of us spoke. The streets blurred past the windows. When we finally got to his apartment, our apartment, I kept reminding myself, he went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the couch in the dark, wondering if I'd just destroyed the man I loved in order to save him. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. The board meeting is at 9 a.m. We need you there to present your findings. Then one from Gregory. Thank you for telling the truth. Brennan will understand eventually. And finally, one from an unknown number. This isn't over. You'll regret what you did to my family. Delilah. I screenshot the text and forwarded it to Gregory and Patricia. Threats wouldn't help her case. Around 2 a.m., the bedroom door opened. Brennan stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. Come to bed, he said quietly. I followed him, and we lay in the darkness without touching. Do you hate me? I finally asked. No, I hate that you were right. I'm sorry. Don't be. If you hadn't found out, I would have married into her lies. Built my whole life on them. He rolled over to face me. The worst part? I'm not even surprised. There were so many signs. Late-night phone calls she'd taken her office, unexplained absences, the way she'd flinch when my dad mentioned Terrence's name. You couldn't have known. I should have. I just didn't want to see it. We fell asleep holding hands, but I kept waking up, checking my phone for more threats from Delilah. Morning came too quickly. The board meeting was in 3 hours, and I still hadn't decided what to wear. Professional? Apologetic? Defiant? I settled on a simple black dress with a cardigan. Conservative, respectful, not trying to make a statement. Brennan got dressed in silence, his movements mechanical. He'd barely eaten breakfast, just pushed his eggs around his plate. You don't have to come, I said. This is going to be brutal. She's my mother. I need to be there. The foundation's office was in a glass tower downtown. We rode the elevator to the 14th floor in tense silence. Gregory was already in the conference room, flanked by 2 lawyers. Patricia sat across from them, her face grim. And at the far end of the table sat Delilah, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. The board members filed in. 12 people who trusted Delilah to manage millions in donations. Their faces ranged from confused to furious. The chairman, an older man named Richard, called the meeting to order. We're here to address serious allegations of financial misconduct against board member Delilah Morrison. Ms. Morrison has been presented with evidence of embezzlement and misappropriation of charitable funds. We've asked her legal counsel to join us. A slick-looking lawyer sat down next to Delilah. He immediately started talking about presumption of innocence and the need for due process. Richard cut him off. This isn't a criminal trial. This is an internal review. We have documentation of unauthorized transfers totaling over $200,000. Ms. Morrison has admitted to these transfers. We're here to determine next steps. He turned to me. Ms. Chen, you're the one who compiled this evidence. Walk us through what you found. I stood up, my legs shaking slightly. I'd presented to rooms full of auditors before, but never with the future of my relationship hanging in the balance. 6 months ago, I noticed inconsistencies in the foundation's quarterly reports. Lie number 1. I'd noticed Delilah's affair 6 months ago, but I hadn't looked at the foundation's books until after Thanksgiving. I started reviewing historical financial data and found a pattern of unauthorized transfers occurring after major fundraising events. I pulled up a spreadsheet on the conference room screen, highlighting the transfers in red. Each transfer was coded as an administrative expense, but they exceeded the 8% cap established in the foundation's bylaws. Over 3 years, these transfers totaled $203,472. Murmurs around the table. One board member, a woman named Helen, raised her hand. Where was this money going? To a joint account held by Ms. Morrison and Terrence Clayton, Mr. Morrison's business partner. Gregory flinched at the mention of Terrence's name. Delilah stared at the table, her lawyer whispering urgently in her ear. I have bank statements showing the account activity as well as documentation of significant purchases made from this account. A luxury vacation to Bali, a Mercedes, a down payment on a vacation property in Vermont. That property was a business investment. Delilah's lawyer interjected. Then why is it titled in Delilah Morrison and Terrence Clayton's names only, not the business? Not as joint tenants with Mr. Morrison, just the 2 of them. Silent. Richard cleared his throat. Ms. Morrison, do you have anything to say? Delilah finally looked up, her eyes pleading. I made mistakes. I allowed personal feelings to cloud my judgment, but I never intended to hurt anyone. The foundation will be repaid in full. With what money? Patricia asked sharply. Your accounts are frozen pending investigation. I'll sell the property in Vermont. Liquidate assets. Whatever it takes. That's not enough, Helen said. You betrayed the trust of every family we've helped. Every donor who believed their money was going toward life-saving research. Another board member, a doctor named William, stood up. I recommended this foundation to my patients' families, told them it was legitimate, that their donations would make a real difference. How do I face them now? You tell them the truth, I said. That one person made terrible choices. But the foundation's mission is still sound, that you've taken steps to ensure it never happens again. William looked at me with surprise. You're defending us? I'm defending the children who need this foundation. Delilah's actions don't erase the good work everyone else has done. Richard nodded slowly. Agreed. But we still need to address the immediate crisis. Ms. Morrison, your lawyer mentioned repayment. Do you have a specific proposal? Delilah's lawyer slid a document across the table. My client is willing to resign from the board immediately, surrender all claim to foundation assets, and enter into a repayment agreement over 5 years. 5 years? Patricia laughed bitterly. By which time the statute of limitations will have run out on criminal charges? We're trying to resolve this privately, because you know a criminal conviction would destroy any chance of her maintaining her social standing, Gregory said flatly. This isn't about making things right. It's about protecting her reputation. What do you want? Delilah asked, looking directly at her husband for the first time. Prison? Public humiliation? Will that make you feel better? No, Gregory said quietly. Nothing will make me feel better. But maybe it'll make those families you stole from feel like justice was served. Brennan had been silent throughout the meeting, but now he spoke. I want to know why. Why Terrence? Why the money? Why throw away everything? Delilah's composure cracked again. Because I was lonely. Your father worked constantly. You were away at college. The house felt empty, and Terrence paid attention to me. So you stole from sick children because you were lonely? I wasn't thinking clearly. The affair clouded my judgment. Stop, Brennan said, his voice rising. Stop making excuses. You knew exactly what you were doing. Every transfer. Every lie. Every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be someone you weren't. He turned to the board. I vote we turn this over to the authorities. Let them decide what happens. Brennan, please. Delilah reached for him, but he stepped back. You don't get to ask me for mercy. Not after this. Richard looked around the table. We need a formal vote. All in favor of referring this matter to law enforcement? 10 hands went up immediately. 2 abstained. Board members who'd been friends with Delilah for years. None voted against. It's decided. I'll contact the district attorney's office this afternoon. Delilah stood abruptly, her chair falling backward. You're all making a mistake. When this becomes public, the foundation's reputation will be destroyed. Donations will dry up. You'll hurt the very people you claim to want to help. We'll weather it, Helen said firmly. Organizations recover from scandals when they handle them with transparency and accountability. It's the cover-ups that kill foundations. Speaking of transparency, I said, I think we should issue a public statement before the criminal charges become public. Control the narrative. Richard looked at me with interest. What kind of statement? Something honest. Acknowledging the breach, explaining the steps we're taking to make victims whole, and committing to stronger financial oversight going forward. You keep saying we, Patricia noted. You're not part of this organization. Not yet, I agreed. But I could be. I'm a forensic accountant. This is literally what I do. Help organizations rebuild after financial crises. The room went quiet as board members exchanged glances. Are you proposing to join the board? Richard asked. I'm proposing to help you survive this. Pro bono, at least initially. Once the foundation is stable, we can discuss compensation. Gregory was staring at me with an unreadable expression. Why would you do that? After everything with Delilah, why would you want anything to do with this family? Because Brennan's family. And because those kids still need help regardless of what his mother did. Richard nodded slowly. We'll take it under advisement. Right now, we need to adjourn this meeting and let Ms. Morrison consult with her attorney about the criminal referral. As people gathered their things, Delilah approached me. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she shook him off. You planned this, she hissed. From the beginning, you wanted to destroy me. No, I said calmly. I wanted to marry your son. You made yourself the obstacle. You'll never be part of this family. Even if Brennan stays with you, and I doubt he will, everyone will remember you as the girl who sent his mother to prison. Maybe. Or maybe they'll remember me as the person who saved the foundation from collapsing completely. Brennan appeared at my side. We're done here, Mom. Don't contact me. Don't contact her. We'll communicate through lawyers from now on. Brennan, you can't mean... I do. You chose Terrence over this family. You chose money over integrity. I'm choosing her. He took my hand and led me out of the conference room. In the elevator, I finally let myself breathe. Are you sure about this? I asked. She's still your mother. A mother who stole from children and cheated on my father for 5 years. I don't know who that person is, but she's not the woman I thought I knew. We drove to a coffee shop and sat in silence for a long time, watching people go about their normal days. A couple arguing over parking. A teenager laughing at something on their phone. Life continuing around us while ours imploded. What now? Brennan finally asked. Now we decide if we still want to get married. If this is too much... Stop, he interrupted. I'm not leaving you because my mother turned out to be a criminal. If anything, you saved me from building my whole life on her lies. But your family will adjust. Patricia's angry right now, but she'll come around. My dad already respects you. And my mom? She made her own choices. He reached across the table and took my hand. I love you. Not despite this mess, but because of how you handled it. You could have just warned me off and walked away. Instead, you did the hard thing. The right thing. The right thing feels terrible. Yeah, it usually does. We spent the next few days in a strange limbo. The board formally voted to hire me as a consultant. Gregory filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Patricia stopped returning my calls. And the district attorney opened a criminal investigation into Delilah's conduct. The media picked up the story 3 days after the board meeting. Prominent philanthropist accused of embezzlement, screamed the headline. Within hours, every major outlet had covered it. Photos of Delilah at charity galas, smiling in designer gowns, juxtaposed with photos of the sick children she'd stolen from. Public opinion was swift and brutal. Death threats flooded her social media before she deleted all her accounts. Her country club revoked her membership. Friends stopped taking her calls. Terrence was arrested trying to flee to Canada. He'd withdrawn $50,000 from the joint account and bought a one-way ticket. Police found him at the border with fake identification and a duffel bag full of cash. His arrest made everything worse for Delilah. Prosecutors charged them both with conspiracy to commit fraud, arguing they'd planned the scheme together. Terrence's lawyer immediately started talking about a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Delilah. Brennan and I watched it all unfold from the safety of his apartment, which had become our bunker. Reporters camped outside the building for a week before security kicked them out. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. Someone leaked my name as the whistleblower, and suddenly, I was part of the story. Forensic accountant exposes future mother-in-law's crimes, read one particularly sensational headline. They used my LinkedIn photo, making me look stern and vindictive. I got hate mail from people who thought I should have handled it privately. I got thank you cards from families whose children had benefited from the foundation. I got marriage proposals from men I'd never met who were impressed by my detective work. The whole thing was surreal. 4 weeks after the engagement party, Delilah was formally indicted on 12 counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. Her bail was set at $500,000. Gregory refused to pay it. She spent 2 nights in jail before her sister finally posted bond. The trial was set for 6 months out. Delilah's lawyer tried every delay tactic imaginable, but the judge wasn't interested. The evidence was too strong, too comprehensive. My documentation of her crimes had made prosecution straightforward. In the meantime, I threw myself into rebuilding the foundation. We hired a new executive director, a former FBI agent with experience in financial crimes. We implemented new oversight procedures requiring dual signatures on all transactions over $1,000. We brought in an independent auditing firm to review all historical records. And we launched a transparency initiative, publishing our financials online every quarter. Donors could see exactly where their money went, down to the dollar. Donations initially dropped by 40% after the scandal broke. People were understandably wary. But slowly, as word spread about the reforms we'd implemented, contributions started climbing again. We were honest about what happened. We owned the failure. And people respected that. 6 months flew by in a blur of work and wedding planning. We'd postponed the original date. Getting married while Delilah was on trial felt wrong, but we started planning for a small ceremony after everything was resolved. Patricia finally called me 3 months into the ordeal. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I was wrong. You didn't destroy this family. You saved it from imploding later. Thank you for saying that. The board wants to make your consultant position permanent, with a real salary and benefits. You've done more in 3 months than most executive directors do in years. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. Richard's ready to make the offer official." I accepted a week later, becoming the foundation's director of financial oversight. It meant working alongside Gregory, who'd stayed on the board despite everything. We developed an easy professional relationship, bonding over spreadsheets and compliance requirements. He never talked about Delilah unless I brought her up. The divorce was proceeding quietly, with lawyers handling everything. He'd moved into a hotel while the house was being appraised and divided. "I thought I knew her," he told me once over coffee. 32 years of marriage, and I didn't know her at all. "You knew the part she showed you. That's all anyone can do. Is that enough? For a marriage? I don't know. I'll let you know after I've been married for 32 years. He smiled at that. The first real smile I'd seen from him in months. The trial started on a cold Monday in February. Brennan and I sat in the back row of the courtroom, watching as Delilah entered in handcuffs. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt and pale. Her expensive clothes hung off her frame. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. They walked the jury through every transfer, every lie, every moment of betrayal. They called character witnesses, families whose children had needed surgery, who donated their savings to the foundation believing it would help. One mother testified about her daughter's heart transplant, how they'd organized fundraisers in their small town to contribute to the foundation. How betrayed she felt, learning that money might have funded Delilah's vacation instead. Delilah's lawyer tried to paint her as a woman suffering from mental illness, depression that clouded her judgment. They brought in a psychiatrist who testified about her anxiety medication, her history of therapy, but it rang hollow against the mountain of evidence. Terrence testified against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. He admitted the affair, the financial scheme, everything. He claimed Delilah had initiated it all, that he'd just gone along to make her happy. Delilah's face remained impassive throughout his testimony, but I saw her hands clenching in her lap. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Delilah didn't react when the verdict was read. She just stood there, staring straight ahead while her lawyer frantically whispered in her ear. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. The prosecution was asking for the maximum, 15 years. Her lawyer was arguing for probation and restitution. We didn't attend the sentencing hearing. Brennan couldn't bring himself to watch his mother be sent to prison. We learned the outcome from a text from Gregory. 8 years. Eligible for parole after 5? Is that justice? Brennan asked, staring at the message. I don't know. Is any punishment enough? She's 63. She'll be 71 when she gets out, if she even lives that long. She'll live, I said. People like her always do. We got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Gregory walked me down the aisle. Patricia was my maid of honor. Brennan's college friends filled the seats, along with some board members and a few of my coworkers. No one mentioned Delilah, though her absence echoed through every moment. During our vows, Brennan said, "I promise to always be honest with you, even when the truth is hard, especially then. And I promised to always trust my instincts and to always choose what's right over what's easy." The reception was small and intimate. People gave speeches about second chances and choosing your own family. Helen from the board told stories about the children we'd helped, the families whose lives had been saved by the foundation's work. Delilah tried to destroy something beautiful, she said, but instead she made it stronger. Because of one person's courage to speak up, this foundation will help thousands of children in the years to come. Everyone looked at me when she said it, and I felt my face flush. "I just turned on the lights," I said when people clapped. "You all did the real work of rebuilding." But I knew that wasn't entirely true. Without my investigation, the embezzlement would have continued. The foundation would have collapsed eventually. and all those families depending on us would have had nowhere to turn. Gregory pulled me aside during dinner. I heard from Delilah's lawyer. She wants to see Brennan. What did you tell him? That it's his decision. But I wanted to warn you first. Brennan had been adamant about cutting contact completely. He'd returned her letters unopened, refused calls from the prison, told her lawyer in no uncertain terms that he had nothing to say to her. Do you think he should go? I asked Gregory. I think he'll regret it if he doesn't, even if it's just to say goodbye to who she used to be. That night, lying in our hotel room, I told Brennan about his mother's request. No, he said immediately. I'm done with her. Okay, you think I should go? I think you should do whatever feels right for you. No judgment, either way. He was quiet for a long time. What would you do if it was your mother? I thought about my own mom, who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through college, who'd taught me that integrity mattered more than money, who would never have stolen from anyone, let alone sick children. I honestly don't know. My mother would never do what Delilah did. But if she had, then I guess I'd want answers. Not excuses, just an explanation of how someone I loved could do something so horrible. 3 weeks later, Brennan drove to the Women's Correctional Facility 2 hours north. I offered to go with him, but he wanted to do it alone. He came home 6 hours later, his eyes red and swollen. She apologized, he said. Actually apologized, without excuses or justifications. How do you feel? Like I said goodbye to someone who died a long time ago. The person in that room looked like my mom, but she wasn't. Not really. Did it help, seeing her? Yeah, I think it did. He pulled me close and we stood in the kitchen holding each other while the sun set outside our window. Life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. I continued working for the foundation, growing it beyond what it had been before the scandal. We launched new programs, expanded our reach, helped more families than ever before. Brennan returned to his work as a civil engineer, designing sustainable housing projects. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, far from the drama of his family's world. Gregory became a regular presence in our lives, stopping by for dinner once a week. He'd aged since the scandal, his hair going gray seemingly overnight, but he seemed lighter somehow, unburdened by the weight of a failing marriage. Patricia and I developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared work on the board. She never fully apologized for her initial hostility, but she didn't need to. Her actions spoke louder. A year after the trial, we received an unexpected letter. It was from one of the mothers who testified, the woman whose daughter had received a heart transplant. Dear Mrs. Morrison, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. Your mother-in-law's actions deeply hurt my family, but I wanted you to know that because of your courage, my daughter is alive today. After the scandal, donations to the foundation increased dramatically. The research you're funding led to a breakthrough in pediatric cardiac surgery. My daughter was one of the first children to benefit from this new technique. She just started kindergarten. She runs and plays like any other 5-year-old. None of that would have been possible without the foundation, and without you speaking up. Thank you for doing the hard thing. I kept that letter in my desk drawer. On hard days, when I questioned whether destroying Brennan's family had been worth it, I'd read it again. Delilah was denied parole after 3 years. Her lawyer argued she'd been a model prisoner, taking classes and counseling sessions. But the parole board wasn't convinced she'd truly understood the scope of her crimes. Inmate Morrison continues to minimize her actions, the board's report stated. She expresses regret at being caught but shows limited remorse for the harm caused to victims. Brennan didn't react when we got the news. He'd moved beyond anger into a kind of peaceful indifference. His mother had become someone he used to know. A character in a story about someone else's life. 5 years after the engagement party that changed everything, I stood in front of the board to present our annual report. The foundation had grown by 300%. We'd funded groundbreaking research that was saving lives across the country. We'd helped over 2,000 families afford life-saving surgeries. None of this would have been possible, Richard said during the meeting, without someone having the courage to say something when they saw something wrong. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 16, with scars visible on her chest from multiple surgeries. Are you the whistleblower? She asked. I nodded, still uncomfortable with that label. I just wanted to say thank you. My family got help from the foundation when I was 8. The money you recovered, the money she stole, it helped pay for my surgery. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a gap-toothed little girl in a hospital bed, giving a thumbs up. That's me, 5 years ago. I almost died because my family couldn't afford the operation, but you made sure the money was there. We stood in the hallway of the office building, this teenage girl and I, while she told me about her life, how she wanted to be a doctor now, how she volunteered at children's hospitals, reading to sick kids, how she was living the life she almost didn't get to have. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Turning her in? Every day, I admitted. It destroyed my fiancé's family, made things complicated in ways I never imagined. But you'd do it again? I looked at this vibrant, healthy teenager in front of me, thought about the thousands of other children whose lives had been saved or improved because the foundation survived. Yeah, I said, I'd do it again. That night, Brennan and I sat on our back porch, watching fireflies dance in the yard. It was the kind of peaceful evening Delilah would have never appreciated. Too simple, too ordinary. Your mom's parole hearing is coming up again, I said. In 3 months. I know. Are you going to write a letter? The parole board asked if family members wanted to submit statements. He was quiet for a long time. No. What she did, who she became, that's between her and the system now. I can't keep reliving it every few years. That's fair. Do you think she'll ever really understand what she did wrong? I thought about Delilah's face in the courtroom, the way she looked at me with pure hatred when the verdict was read. Probably not. Some people are incapable of seeing beyond their own needs. That's sad. Yeah, it really is. We sat in silence as darkness fell. 2 people who'd survived a catastrophe and somehow built something better from the ruins. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Gregory. I'm getting remarried, he said without preamble. Congratulations. Who's the lucky woman? Her name is Ruth. She's a children's librarian. We met at a foundation event 3 months ago. Fast. At my age, you don't waste time. Life's too short to be alone. Does Brennan know? I wanted to tell you first. Make sure you'd both be okay with it. We're happy for you. You deserve this. After I hung up, I thought about Gregory, who'd lost his wife, his business partner, and his faith in people all in one terrible day. And somehow, he'd found his way back to hope. That was what survival looked like. Not forgetting what happened, but refusing to let it define your entire future. Delilah was released after serving 7 years of her 8-year sentence. We learned about it from a brief mention in the local paper. Former philanthropist released from prison. No fanfare. No media circus. Just a brief notice that she'd been transferred to a halfway house in a neighboring state. Brennan's phone rang that night. An unknown number. He looked at it, then at me. What do you think? I think it's your decision. He let it go to voicemail. The message was brief. Delilah's voice, older and rougher than I remembered. Brennan, it's your mother. I know I have no right to call, but I wanted you to know I'm out. I'm in a halfway house in Ohio. I'm working with a therapist, trying to understand what I did and why. Pause. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm sorry. For everything. For the lies. The theft. For destroying your trust in me. Another pause. I love you. I always have. Even when I didn't show it. I hope someday you can believe that. The message ended. Brennan played it 3 more times. His face unreadable. What are you thinking? I asked. That she sounds different. Smaller somehow. Does that change anything? I don't know. Part of me wants to respond. Part of me thinks it's too late. It's not about it being too late. It's about what you need. He deleted the message but saved the number. I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday. Okay. 3 months later, we celebrated the foundation's 10th anniversary since the scandal. The event was held in a hotel ballroom, packed with donors, board members, and families who'd been helped over the years. Helen gave a speech about resilience and redemption. Not Delilah's redemption, but the organization's. 10 years ago, we faced an existential crisis. One person's greed threatened to destroy decades of good work. But instead of collapsing, we became stronger. We became more transparent, more accountable, more committed to our mission. She gestured to me. One person's courage to speak up saved this organization. And in doing so, saved countless lives. The applause was overwhelming. I stood and waved awkwardly, never comfortable being the center of attention. After the speeches, a reporter from the local paper approached me. Can I ask you a few questions? For a follow-up piece on the anniversary? Sure. Do you have any regrets about exposing Delilah Morrison? Every day. But not about the act itself. About the fact that it was necessary. Have you spoken to her since her release? No. And I don't plan to. Do you think she's truly reformed? I think prison changes people. Whether it makes them better or just more careful is hard to say. What would you say to other people who suspect financial wrongdoing in organizations they're part of? Speak up. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And understand that doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. The article ran a week later with the headline, Whistleblower Reflects on Decade of Reform. It included an interview with Gregory and Ruth, who'd been married for 2 years now. They'd had a small ceremony, nothing like the elaborate affair Gregory and Delilah had thrown for their anniversary just before the scandal broke. My first marriage was built on appearances, Gregory said in the article. This one is built on honesty. That's the difference. Patricia was quoted too, talking about how the scandal had taught the board valuable lessons about oversight and accountability. We assumed good intentions, she said. Now we verify everything. Trust, but verify. That's our motto now. The article mentioned Delilah only briefly, noting she'd been released and was living quietly in Ohio, working as a bookkeeper for a small nonprofit. The irony of that wasn't lost on anyone. 2 years after her release, Brennan finally responded to one of his mother's periodic messages. Not a call, just a text. I don't know if we'll ever have a real relationship again, but I'm willing to try supervised conversations, if you're interested. The response came within minutes. Yes, please, anytime you're ready. They met at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our city and her halfway house. I waited in the car while they talked for 2 hours. When Brennan came out, his face was wet with tears. She's different, he said. Broken maybe, but different. Good different? I don't know yet. But she listened. Actually listened, without making excuses. How do you feel? Like maybe, eventually, I can forgive her. Not forget. Never forget. But forgive. They started meeting once a month. Slowly. Carefully. Rebuilding something that resembled a relationship. Not the unconditional love of his childhood, but something more honest. Delilah never asked to meet me. She sent a letter once, apologizing for the threats and the hate. I read it, acknowledged it, and filed it away with all the other documentation of that terrible time. Some wounds heal, some just scar over, and some never fully close. The foundation continues to thrive. We're funding research that's pushing the boundaries of what's possible in pediatric cardiac care. We've helped over 10,000 families. We've become a model for other organizations trying to rebuild after financial scandals, and I'm still here, checking every transaction, questioning every expense, making sure history doesn't repeat itself. People sometimes ask if I'm cynical now, if seeing what Delilah did made me lose faith in humanity. The opposite happened. I saw Gregory rebuild his life with grace and dignity. I saw Patricia set aside her pride to do what was right. I saw Brennan choose truth over comfortable lies. I saw board members work tirelessly to restore the foundation's reputation. I saw dozens of families pull together to donate after the scandal, explicitly because they wanted to prove that one person's crimes wouldn't destroy something good. I saw the teenage girl with surgical scars tell me she wanted to be a doctor, to help other kids like her. Delilah showed me what happens when you prioritize yourself above everything else. But everyone else showed me what happens when you choose integrity, even when it's hard. That's the real lesson from all of this. Not that people are terrible, but that when they are, there are always others willing to step up and do the work of repair. 10 years after that engagement party, Brennan and I renewed our vows. Same botanical gardens, same small group of friends and family. But this time, it felt different. The first time, we'd been promising to face an unknown future together. This time, we knew exactly what we'd survived and chosen each other anyway. Gregory and Ruth were there, holding hands like newlyweds. Patricia brought her new partner, a woman she'd been seeing for a year. Board members and foundation families filled the seats. And in the back row, barely visible, sat Delilah. Brennan had invited her, not to walk him down the aisle or give a speech, just to witness that he'd built a life beyond her mistakes. She left immediately after the ceremony, slipping out before the reception. But she'd been there, and that was enough. During the reception, a little boy approached me, maybe 4 years old with a scar peeking out from his shirt collar. "Are you the lady who helps sick kids?" he asked. "I try to," I said, kneeling down to his level. "Thank you," he said solemnly. "The doctors fixed my heart because of you." His mother appeared, apologizing for the interruption, but I was glad he'd spoken up, because that's what it was all for. Not revenge against Delilah, not vindication for being right, but this. A healthy child who got to grow up because someone chose to speak the truth. Later that night, Brennan and I stood on the same back porch where we'd spent countless evenings processing the aftermath of the scandal. "Do you think she'll stay clean?" he asked. "My mom? I think she'll try. Whether she succeeds is up to her. I hope she does. For her sake, not mine. That's growth." Is it weird that I feel sorry for her? No. She lost everything. Her marriage, her reputation, her freedom, nearly her relationship with you. That's a heavy price to pay. She earned it. Doesn't mean it's not sad. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of slowly healing from wounds that should have torn us apart. "I'm glad you were nosy," Brennan said suddenly. "Excuse me? That day you followed her to the coffee shop. If you'd minded your own business, I'd be married to a woman I could never really trust, because I'd always wonder what my mom was hiding." "I wasn't being nosy. I was being thorough." He laughed and pulled me close. "You were being both, and I love you for it." The foundation's 15th anniversary fell on a Tuesday. We'd planned a major gala to celebrate. Black tie, silent auction, the works. Tickets were $500 a plate, with all proceeds going directly to research. The ballroom was packed. Donors and board members mingled with families who'd been helped. Surgeons who'd used our funded research to save lives. Politicians who'd supported our work. Media covering the feel-good story of an organization that had survived scandal and emerged stronger. I stood at the podium to give the keynote speech, looking out at hundreds of faces. 15 years ago, this organization faced its darkest moment. One person's choices threatened to destroy decades of work and betray the trust of thousands of families. But here's what that person didn't understand. Good work survives bad actors. When an organization's mission is strong and its people are committed, no individual can destroy it. We didn't just survive the scandal. We used it as a catalyst for transformation. We implemented oversight procedures that became models for other nonprofits. We committed to radical transparency. We proved that accountability and compassion can coexist. Today, we've helped over 15,000 families. Our funded research has led to breakthrough treatments that are saving lives around the world. We've trained other organizations in financial oversight and crisis management. None of this erases what happened, but it proves that one person's worst actions don't have to define an entire organization's legacy. The applause was deafening, but more importantly, I saw tears on the faces of parents whose children were alive because of this work. That was the real victory. After the speeches, Gregory pulled me aside. "I want to establish an endowment in your name, the Morrison Integrity Fund, to support organizations recovering from financial scandals." "You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. You saved my family's legacy. Let me honor that." The fund was established 6 months later with an initial donation of $5 million. Other donors added to it, moved by the story of redemption and reform. The irony of a fund named after the Morrison family helping organizations recover from embezzlement wasn't lost on anyone. But that was the point, showing that families could choose to build something good from the ashes of scandal. Delilah sent a letter when she heard about the fund. "I don't deserve to have my name associated with something good, but I'm grateful that you're turning my worst mistakes into something that helps others. I'll never forgive myself for what I did, but maybe someday I can find peace, knowing that at least some good came from all the pain I caused. Thank you for giving my family a path forward when I tried to burn all the bridges." I showed the letter to Brennan. "She's trying," he said. "I'll give her that." Is trying enough? For me? I don't know, but it's something. 20 years after the engagement party that changed everything, I retired from active work at the foundation. Not because I was done fighting for the mission, but because new leadership was ready to take over. A young woman named Chen, no relation, became the new director of financial oversight. She was brilliant, thorough, and committed to the same principles of transparency that had guided us through the crisis. "You're my role model," she told me on her first day. "I wrote my master's thesis about how this organization recovered from scandal. Then you know it wasn't me alone. It was hundreds of people choosing integrity over convenience. But you started it. You could have walked away. Instead, you stayed and fought." I thought about that often in retirement. How many times I'd wanted to walk away. How much easier it would have been to just break up with Brennan and avoid the whole mess. But I hadn't. And that choice, to stay and fight for what was right, had rippled out in ways I never could have imagined. The foundation was thriving. Families were being helped. Research was saving lives. Other organizations were learning from our experience. All because I trusted my instincts and refused to be intimidated. Brennan retired from engineering around the same time. We bought a small cabin in the mountains and spent our days hiking, reading, and enjoying the peace we'd fought so hard to build. Delilah passed away 2 years into our retirement. Heart failure, sudden and unexpected. She was 78. Brennan got the call from a nurse at her assisted living facility. She'd been living there for 3 years, working part-time at a local food bank and attending therapy twice a week. She left something for you, the nurse said. Asked me to send it after she died. The package arrived a week later. Inside was a worn leather journal and a letter. Dear Brennan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I've spent the last 20 years trying to make amends and I'm exhausted. The journal contains everything I should have told you when you were growing up. Stories about your grandparents. Advice I wish I'd given. Apologies for all the ways I failed you. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust in ways that can never be fully repaired. I know I stole from children who needed help, and that's a stain on my soul I'll carry forever. But I want you to know something. Watching you build a life with integrity, watching you choose honesty even when it was hard, watching you become the man I should have been, that's been my redemption. You're everything I wasn't, and I'm proud of you. Love. Mom. Brennan read the letter 3 times, then set it aside. Do you want to read the journal? I asked. Not yet, maybe someday. We held a small memorial service for Delilah. Just immediate family and a few people from her last years who'd known the person she'd become after prison. The priest talked about redemption and second chances, about how people could change, even if they couldn't undo their past mistakes. After the service, a woman approached us, someone I didn't recognize. I worked with Delilah at the food bank, she said. I wanted you to know she was different in her last years. Humble, hardworking. She never talked about her past, but when someone finally told me who she was, I couldn't believe it. Why not? Brennan asked. Because the woman I knew would give someone her last dollar if they needed it. She spent hours with homeless families, helping them fill out paperwork, navigate the system. She was kind. Brennan's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for telling me that. After everyone left, we stood by her grave, a simple headstone with just her name and dates. Do you think she really changed? I asked. I think she tried. And in the end, maybe that's all any of us can do. We drove home in silence, processing the end of a story that had defined so much of our lives. That night, Brennan opened the journal and started reading. I sat beside him, watching decades of complicated feelings play across his face. Some of it was mundane, recipes from his grandmother, stories about his childhood, observations about family dynamics. But some of it was raw, admissions of mistakes, explanations of choices, expressions of regret. One entry, dated 6 months before her death, stood out. I'm dying. The doctors say I have maybe a year left, and I find myself thinking about that engagement party 23 years ago. The night my whole carefully constructed life fell apart. For years I blamed her, Brennan's wife, the woman who exposed me. I told myself she was vindictive, jealous, manipulative, but the truth is simpler and harder. She did what I should have done. She chose integrity over comfort. She chose truth over lies. She chose what was right, even when it cost her. I wish I'd been that brave. I wish I'd admitted my mistakes before they destroyed everything. I wish I'd been honest with Gregory, with Brennan, with myself, but I wasn't. And I'll die knowing that the best thing I ever did was give birth to a son who learned to be better than me. Brennan closed the journal and sat in silence for a long time. She understood, he finally said. At the end, she understood. Does that change anything? It doesn't fix what she did, but it means she died knowing the truth, and maybe that's enough. We never told the story of the journal publicly. It felt like something that should stay private, the final chapter in a very public scandal. But privately, Brennan found peace with it. His mother had done terrible things, faced consequences, and spent her last years trying to be better, not trying to undo her mistakes. That was impossible, but trying to live differently. That was all anyone could ask. Years passed. The foundation continued to thrive under new leadership. Gregory and Ruth celebrated their 20th anniversary. Patricia retired and wrote a book about nonprofit governance that became required reading in business schools. And Brennan and I grew old together, our hair graying, our steps slowing, our love deepening with each passing year. On our 40th anniversary, we returned to the botanical gardens where we'd been married. The trees were bigger, the paths were different, but the feeling was the same. Two people who'd chosen each other despite everything that tried to tear them apart. Do you have any regrets? Brennan asked. Only that we had to go through all that in the first place, but not about how we handled it. Me too. We sat on a bench watching young couples take wedding photos, full of hope and promise, completely unaware of the trials that might await them. What would you tell them? Brennan asked, nodding toward a bride and groom posing by a fountain. If you could give them one piece of advice? I thought about it for a long time. I'd tell them that love isn't enough. You also need honesty. You need the courage to speak hard truths even when it costs you. You need the strength to choose what's right over what's easy. That's not very romantic. No, but it's true. He took my hand, his fingers finding mine with the ease of 4 decades together. I'm glad you chose truth, even when it hurt. Me too. We sat there until sunset. Two people who'd survived a scandal that should have destroyed them, who'd built a life on the ashes of betrayal, who'd proven that integrity was worth fighting for, even when the fight was brutal. The foundation we'd saved continued its work. Thousands of children were alive because we'd refused to let one person's crimes destroy something good. That was our legacy. Not the scandal itself, but what we built from it. And in the end, that made all the pain worth it. My daughter's friend is weirdo. That's what I thought the first time Cassidy brought Naya home from school. The girl stood in our doorway wearing mismatched socks, one hand clutching a plastic bag filled with dirt, the other holding a notebook covered in symbols I didn't recognize. This is Nia, Cassidy announced. She's going to help me with the science project. Nia didn't say hello. She walked past me, went straight to our backyard, and started collecting leaves, just plucking them off our maple tree with the intensity of a surgeon. Is she okay? I whispered to Cassidy. My daughter shrugged. She's really smart, Mom. Like scary smart. Over the next few weeks, Nia became a fixture at our house. She'd arrive every Tuesday and Thursday, never knocking, just appearing at 3:47 p.m. exactly. She barely spoke. When she did, it was usually to correct something. "Your microwave is leaking radiation from the left seal," she said once while I was heating up leftovers. I laughed. She didn't. 3 days later, the microwave died. The repair guy confirmed the seal had failed on the left side. Then came the predictions. Small things at first. "It's going to rain at 4:12 tomorrow," she'd announce. It would. "Your husband's car needs new brake pads." It did. "The grocery store will be out of milk on Saturday." They were. I started keeping a list. In 2 months, Naya made 47 specific predictions. All of them came true. My husband thought it was coincidence. Cassidy thought it was cool. I thought it was impossible. Until the day Naya looked at me with those unsettling dark eyes and said, "You need to check your daughter's closet behind the shoeboxes tonight." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Just check," she said, then went back to her homework. That night, I found 14 bottles of pills behind the shoeboxes. Not prescriptions. Street drugs. Fentanyl. Enough to kill her 20 times over. Cassidy broke down immediately. She'd been buying them from a senior named Trevor, planning to sell them at school. She was in debt to him for $3,400. I called the police. They arrested Trevor that afternoon. The detective told me if Cassidy had started selling, she'd be facing felony charges. "Someone tipped us off about this kid 2 weeks ago," he said. "Anonymous call. Probably saved your daughter's life." I knew who made that call. The next Tuesday, Nia showed up at 3:47 p.m. exactly. I opened the door and just stared at her. "How did you know?" "Because I see patterns other people don't. And your daughter's pattern was heading somewhere bad." "What are you?" She smiled slightly. "Just observant." But that night, while putting away Cassidy's laundry, I found Nia's notebook. Inside were pages of calculations, probability matrices, behavioral predictions. But the last page made my blood run cold. It was a detailed timeline of my family going back 3 months. Every argument, every purchase, every decision, all mapped out with percentages. And at the bottom, circled in red, final intervention, November 17th, success probability, 94%. Today was November 17th. I heard footsteps. Nia appeared, her eyes fixed on the notebook in my hands. "You weren't supposed to see that yet." "What is this?" She took one step forward. "I don't just see patterns in data, I see patterns in people. And your family's pattern is about to intersect with something you can't handle alone." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was my husband, with someone I didn't recognize. Time-stamped from this morning. "Who is that?" "His name is Vincent. And he's not who your husband thinks he is." The photo showed my husband shaking hands with a man outside a coffee shop downtown. Vincent looked ordinary. Mid-40s, expensive suit, warm smile, nothing threatening. But Nia's expression told me everything I needed to know. "My husband meets with investors all the time," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "For his construction company. Vincent Holloway isn't an investor." Nia swiped to another photo. This one showed Vincent leaving what looked like a warehouse. 3 months ago, he approached your husband about a development deal, promised to triple his investment in 6 months. My hands went numb. "How do you know this?" "Because I've been tracking him." She pulled up a document on her phone, pages of research, financial records, court documents. "Vincent Holloway has done this 11 times in the past 7 years. He targets small business owners, gains their trust, gets them to invest everything they have. And then, the projects collapse. The investors lose everything. Vincent disappears with the money." She looked at me. "Your husband signed papers yesterday. He mortgaged your house without telling you." The room tilted. "That's not possible. We both have to sign for that." Nia handed me her phone. On the screen was a scanned document. Our mortgage refinancing papers. My signature at the bottom looked perfect. "But I'd never seen this document before in my life." "He forged it," Nia said quietly. "Vincent has a specialist who does this. Makes the paperwork look legitimate until it's too late." I sank onto the couch. My husband and I had been married for 16 years. We'd built our life together from nothing. The house was paid off last year. We'd celebrated with champagne and talked about finally taking that trip to Italy. Why would he do this without telling me? Because Vincent convinced him it's a sure thing, that he'd surprise you with the profit. Nia sat down next to me. "He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to provide. Vincent is very good at reading people. He knew exactly what to promise." "How much?" My voice cracked. $340,000. The full equity in your house." I couldn't breathe. That was everything. Our retirement, Cassidy's college fund, the safety net we'd spent years building. Where is he now? "Meeting with Vincent. They're signing the final transfer documents." Nia checked her watch. "You have approximately 47 minutes before the money moves to an offshore account." I grabbed my keys. "We need to stop this." "We can't. Not legally. Your husband is willingly entering into a contract. By the time you prove the signature was forged, the money would be gone." She stood up. "But there's another way." "What?" "We let it happen, and we use it to expose Vincent." I stared at her. This 14-year-old girl was suggesting we let my husband lose everything. Are you insane? Vincent has destroyed 11 families. The FBI has been trying to catch him for 3 years, but he's too careful. Never leaves evidence. Never makes mistakes. Nia's eyes hardened. "Except this time, he doesn't know I'm watching." "Why do you care about this?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Family number 7 was mine. My dad invested in one of Vincent's projects. Lost our house, our savings, everything. My parents divorced over it. Dad started drinking. 3 months later, he drove into a telephone pole. The police called it an accident." "Nia, it wasn't an accident. I found the note he left. He couldn't live with what he'd done to us." She looked at me. I was 11. I've been tracking Vincent ever since, learning how he operates, waiting for the right moment. The calculation in her notebook suddenly made terrible sense. She hadn't just been tracking my family, she'd been preparing a trap. "You used us as bait." I tried other approaches first. Anonymous tips, sending evidence to the FBI. Nothing stuck. He's too smart, too connected. Her voice remained steady. But if we do this right, we can catch him in the act. Document everything. Make sure he can't destroy another family. My phone buzzed. A text from my husband. Running late. Don't wait up for dinner. He had no idea what he'd just done. What's your plan? I asked. Nia opened her backpack and pulled out 3 small devices. Audio recorders. We plant them in Vincent's office. He'll meet with your husband there after the money transfers. He always does. Celebrates the deal, talks about future projects. That's when he gets sloppy. And then we have him admitting to fraud on tape, multiple times. With witnesses who can corroborate the pattern, she handed me a file folder. I've contacted the other families. 6 of them are willing to testify if we can provide proof. I opened the folder. Inside were photos of people I'd never met, but their faces all held the same expression, the hollowed-out look of people who'd lost everything. A woman named Thea, standing in front of what used to be her bakery, foreclosed. A man named Fletcher, holding his daughter. His wife had left after they lost their house. A couple named Iris and Donovan. Their statement described how they'd lost their restaurant and filed for bankruptcy. You've been planning this for 3 years, I said. I've been planning it since I was 11. Nia took the folder back. I just needed the right situation. Vincent is getting cocky. He's closing deals faster now, making mistakes. Like forging my signature. Exactly. He's done it before, but never documented it so sloppily. He thinks he's untouchable. She checked her watch again. We have 40 minutes. I need your help. Every instinct screamed at me to call my husband, to stop this before it was too late. But looking at those photos, at those destroyed lives, I knew Nia was right. This was bigger than our family. What do you need me to do? We drove to Vincent's office building in the financial district, a gleaming glass tower that screamed success. Nia had blueprints of the entire floor layout. She'd been preparing for this moment with the same intensity she brought to collecting leaves from our backyard. Vincent's office is on the 23rd floor, southeast corner. His assistant leaves at 5 p.m. exactly. Never stays late. Nia pointed to a maintenance elevator on the blueprints. We'll use the service entrance. I've already disabled the security cameras on that route. How did you? I've been coming here after school for 2 months. Observing patterns. Security rotates shifts every 4 hours. The maintenance crew takes a break at 4:45. We have a 12-minute window. We waited in the parking garage until exactly 4:44 p.m. Nia handed me a maintenance uniform she'd somehow acquired. It fit perfectly. You knew I'd agree to this, I said. 87% probability. She put on her own uniform. The other 13% involved you calling the police and ruining everything. We took the maintenance elevator to the 22nd floor, then used the stairs for the last flight. The hallway was empty. Nia moved with absolute certainty, like she'd walked this route 1,000 times. Vincent's office door was locked. Nia pulled out a keycard. Where did you get that? Vincent's assistant gets coffee at the same place every morning. She leaves her purse at the table while she orders. I cloned her access card 3 weeks ago. The door clicked open. Vincent's office was exactly what I expected. Leather furniture, original art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, everything designed to project wealth and power. Nia moved quickly, placing the first recorder behind a bookshelf. The second went under the conference table. The third she hid inside a decorative plant. These are voice-activated, she explained. They'll record everything and upload to a secure cloud server. Even if he finds them, we'll have the audio. My phone buzzed. Another text from my husband. Sorry, honey. This meeting is running long. Big things happening. Love you. My hands shook. He thought he was securing our future. Instead, he was signing away everything we had. We need to leave, Nia said. Security rotation changes in 4 minutes. We made it back to the parking garage with 30 seconds to spare. Nia checked her phone. Money transfer just processed. $340,000 moved to Vincent's holding company account. I felt sick. Now we wait, Nia said. Your husband will be at Vincent's office in approximately 15 minutes. Vincent will want to celebrate. That's when he'll talk. We sat in my car, Nia monitoring the audio feed on her laptop. At 5:23 p.m., we heard a door open. Kevin, come in, come in. Vincent's voice was warm, friendly. Congratulations on taking this step. You won't regret it. My husband laughed. He sounded happy, excited. I still can't believe the returns you're promising. 300% in 6 months? Conservative estimate. The last group I worked with saw 400%, but I like to underpromise and overdeliver. They talked about the development project. Luxury condos in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Vincent had detailed plans, architectural renderings, market analysis. It all sounded legitimate. When do we break ground? My husband asked. That's the beauty of this opportunity. We're not starting from scratch. The foundation's already laid. Previous investor had to pull out due to a family emergency. His loss is your gain. Nia typed notes on her laptop, flagging specific statements. You've done this before? My husband asked. Kevin, I've been in development for 20 years. This is my 14th major project. Vincent's voice dropped slightly. I'll be honest with you. I don't take on just anyone as a partner, but you remind me of myself at your age. Hungry. Willing to take calculated risks. I appreciate that. My wife, she's more cautious, which is why I haven't told her yet. I wanted to wait until the first returns came in. Smart move. Women worry. It's in their nature. Better to show her the results than try to explain the potential. Vincent chuckled. My ex-wife nearly killed me when I mortgaged our house for my first deal. But when I handed her a check for $1 million 6 months later, suddenly I was a genius. Nia's fingers flew across the keyboard, flagging timestamp after timestamp. This really is life-changing, my husband said. Cassidy starts college next year. This money means we can pay for everything outright. No loans. Absolutely. Your daughter's going to have opportunities most kids can dream of. Papers rustled. Now, there are some additional opportunities I want to discuss. If this goes as well as I expect, We might want to consider a second project. Same terms, bigger return. I'd be interested, but I don't have more equity to pull. We can structure it differently. Bring in other investors. You'd be the primary partner. Vincent's voice turned conspiratorial. Between you and me, I have 3 other interested parties, but I wanted to offer you first right of refusal. This was it. The secondary trap. Nia had mentioned this in her research. Vincent didn't just take people's money once. He convinced them to bring in friends, family, colleagues, expanding the web. I have a brother-in-law who might be interested, my husband said. My stomach dropped. He was talking about Cassidy's uncle, my sister's husband. They just refinanced their home too. Perfect. Have him call me. More papers rustling. Now, I need you to sign a few more documents. Standard partnership agreements. And there's a confidentiality clause. My investors prefer to keep their involvement private. Helps avoid complications. Makes sense. The confidentiality clause. That's how Vincent kept his victims silent. By the time they realized they'd been scammed, they'd already signed agreements preventing them from discussing the details. Nia was smiling now. A cold, calculating smile that didn't belong on a 14-year-old's face. Got him, she whispered. He just admitted to the previous investor pulling out. That's the Donovan case. Family emergency was him losing his house. The recording continued for another 30 minutes. Vincent walked my husband through paperwork, made promises, built dreams. The whole time my husband sounded happier than I'd heard him in years. Finally, they finished. Congratulations again, Kevin. You're going to be a very wealthy man. Thank you, Vincent. Really, this means everything. The door closed. Silence. Nia stopped the recording. We have enough. Multiple admissions, pattern evidence, references to previous victims. Now what? Now we contact the FBI. I've been in touch with Agent Brennan. She's been building a case against Vincent for 2 years. This is exactly what she needs. Agent Brennan arrived at our house at 8:47 p.m. She was younger than I expected, probably early 30s, with sharp eyes that reminded me of Nia. I've been waiting for this phone call for a long time, she said, setting up her laptop at our kitchen table. Nia's been feeding me information about Vincent for 18 months. But we couldn't move without concrete evidence. She listened to the recordings, made notes, asked questions. This is good, really good, but I need to be honest with you. Agent Brennan looked at me. Even with this evidence, recovery of funds is unlikely. Vincent moves money through shell corporations, offshore accounts. By the time we freeze assets, most of it's gone. So we'll lose everything anyway, probably. But we can prevent him from doing this to anyone else. And we might be able to negotiate a plea deal that includes restitution. She closed her laptop. Where's your husband now? Working late. He thinks he's preparing documents for the construction project. We need to bring him in, brief him on what's happening. I'll need his cooperation to make this case airtight. He's going to be devastated. Yes, but better devastated now than destroyed later when the project collapses and creditors come calling. My husband came home at 11:30 p.m., carrying Chinese takeout and wearing the biggest smile I'd seen in months. You're not going to believe what happened today. I know what happened. I know about Vincent. I know about the mortgage. His face went white. The takeout containers slipped from his hands, scattering egg rolls across our kitchen floor. How did you... Sit down, Agent Brennan introduced herself. My husband's expression shifted from shock to confusion to horror as she explained who Vincent really was, what he'd done to other families, what was about to happen to ours. No, I met with lawyers. I saw the permits, the architectural plans. He pulled documents from his briefcase, spreading them across the table. This is real. The development is real. The permits are forged, Agent Brennan said gently. The architectural firm went out of business 2 years ago. Vincent buys their letterhead online. My husband's hand shook as he flipped through the paper, looking for something, anything, that would prove he hadn't just destroyed our lives. The site inspection. I was there last week. I saw the foundation. That's from a project that was abandoned in 2019. Vincent uses it as a prop, takes investors there, shows them progress, then claims delays. Agent Brennan pulled up photos on her laptop. This is that same site 6 months ago. Exact same state. No actual work happening. My husband stood up, walked to the sink, and vomited. Cassidy appeared in the doorway, woken by the noise. What's happening? Go back to bed, sweetheart, I said. No. She looked at her father. Dad, what did you do? The next 48 hours were a blur. Agent Brennan coordinated with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They secured warrants, froze what accounts they could find, and prepared to raid Vincent's office. Nia sat with us through all of it, her notebook open, cross-referencing details. She'd spent 3 years preparing for this moment. At 14, she'd built a case that seasoned FBI agents called impressive. Why didn't you just go to the police from the beginning? My husband asked her. Why use my family? Nia didn't look up from her notes. I tried, filed reports, sent evidence. Nobody cared about a kid whose dad crashed his car. They wrote it off as grief, conspiracy theories. She finally met his eyes. I needed an active case. Someone Vincent was actively scamming. Otherwise, it's just old crimes with missing evidence. You could have warned me. Would you have believed me? A strange 14-year-old telling you your big investment opportunity is a scam? She tilted her head. You would have thought I was jealous. Or crazy. Just like the adults thought when I tried to warn them about Cassidy's drug problem. She was right. I wouldn't have believed her either if I hadn't seen her track record myself. The FBI raided Vincent's office on November 19th at 6 a.m. They found exactly what Nia predicted. Files on 23 active investors, forged documents, accounts showing $4.7 million in recent deposits. Vincent was arrested at his home in the suburbs. His wife and 3 kids watched as agents led him away in handcuffs. Nia insisted on being there. She stood across the street watching through binoculars. His daughter is 11, she said quietly. Same age I was. Vincent's legal team was aggressive. They fought every charge, claiming the investments were legitimate business ventures that happened to fail. But the recording from his office, combined with testimony from 6 previous victims, built an overwhelming case. The prosecutor offered a plea deal: 15 years in federal prison, restitution of $1.2 million split among documented victims. Vincent took it. Agent Brennan called us with the news. Restitution will take years. You'll probably recover about 30 cents on the dollar. But it's something. 30 cents on the dollar meant we'd get back maybe $100,000 of the $340,000 we lost. We'd still have to sell the house, downsize dramatically. My husband's business would take years to recover. Cassidy's college fund was gone, but we wouldn't lose absolutely everything. The real reckoning happened at home. My husband couldn't look at me for weeks. He moved into the guest room, threw himself into work, barely spoke during meals. The guilt was eating him alive. "I did this," he said one night, finally breaking. "I destroyed our family because I wanted to be the hero, the provider, the man who could give you everything. You already gave me everything," I said. "We had enough. I wanted more. For you, for Cassidy. I wanted to be more than just enough." That's what Vincent exploited. Not greed exactly. Just the human desire to provide, to be successful, to give your family advantages you never had. Cassidy handled it better than expected. Maybe because she'd already been through her own crisis with Trevor and the drugs. She got a part-time job at a bookstore, started researching scholarships, made plans to attend community college for 2 years before transferring. "It's actually kind of a relief," she told me. "Less pressure. I can figure out what I actually want instead of just picking the fanciest school." Nia continued coming over on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:47 p.m. exactly. But the dynamic had shifted. She wasn't just Cassidy's weird friend anymore. She was the girl who had saved us from complete destruction. "Did you know this would happen?" I asked her one afternoon, "when you first came to our house. Did you already see the pattern?" She was quiet for a long moment, working on homework. "I saw the possibility. Your husband's business was struggling. He was stressed about money. People in that state make bad decisions. Vincent targets people like that. So you did use us. I gave you a choice. I could have let the drug situation with Cassidy spiral. Let your husband lose everything without intervention. Let Vincent destroy another family and move on." She looked up from her textbook. "Instead, I gave you the information you needed to make decisions. That's all I've ever done. You're 14. I stopped being 14 the day I found my dad's suicide note." Her voice remained steady, but something flickered in her eyes. "Age is just a number. Experience is what matters," I wanted to argue, to tell her she deserved to be a kid. But looking at her, at the way she carried herself, I realized that ship had sailed years ago. "What happens now?" I asked. "Vincent's in prison. You got justice for your dad." Vincent was one person. There are hundreds like him. Thousands. She turned a page in her notebook. "I've identified 47 similar patterns across the state. Different names, same methods. Financial predators who target vulnerable people. You can't stop them all." "No, but I can stop some of them." She smiled slightly. "And I'm getting better at it." Over the next few months, Nia expanded her operation. She created a website where people could report suspicious investment opportunities. She developed algorithms to identify patterns in financial fraud. She even started working with Agent Brennan officially, as a consultant. At 14, she was doing work that most adults couldn't comprehend. Her mother called me once. "I don't know what happened to my daughter. She used to be normal. Now she's obsessed with patterns and predictions and stopping bad people. She's trying to make sense of what happened to your family." I said. "I know, but I worry she's losing herself in it. She doesn't have friends her own age, doesn't go to parties or football games, just works on her projects." Her voice cracked. "I don't know how to bring her back. Maybe you can't. Maybe this is who she is now." The truth was, I didn't know if Nia could ever go back to being a normal kid. Trauma changes people. She'd channeled hers into something productive, something meaningful. But the cost was her childhood. Cassidy noticed it too. Nia's different from everyone else. Not just smart different, like fundamentally different. "Does it bother you?" "Sometimes. She knows things about me that I never told her. Predicts things I'm going to do before I do them." Cassidy paused. "But she saved my life, saved our family. So I figured the least I can do is be her friend. Even if she's using you to study human behavior patterns? Especially then. Someone that smart, that observant, that driven. She needs people around her who can keep her grounded. Otherwise, she'll turn into something scary." My daughter was wiser than I'd given her credit for. We sold our house in March. Moved into a smaller place across town. It hurt watching strangers walk through rooms where we'd celebrated birthdays, Christmases, graduations. But it could have been worse. We could have lost everything. My husband's business stabilized. He took on a partner, someone who could share the financial burden. He started seeing a therapist who specialized in shame and rebuilding after financial loss. "I'm never making another decision without telling you first," he promised. "I know. I mean it. Never again." I believe you. And I did. Some lessons you only learn by losing everything. On the 1-year anniversary of Vincent's arrest, Nia showed up at our new house at 3:47 p.m., carrying a folder. "I wanted to show you something," she said. Inside were news clippings. 6 more financial predators arrested across 3 states, all following similar patterns to Vincent. All caught because of information Nia had provided to law enforcement. "You did this?" Agent Brennan did the actual work, but I identified the patterns, connected the cases, provided evidence. She sat down at our kitchen table. "Vincent's daughter reached out to me last month. She found my website. My heart stopped. What did she want? To understand what her father did, why he did it, how many people he hurt." Nia's expression softened slightly. "She's 12 now, same age I was when I started this." "You didn't?" I told her the truth, all of it, including what it cost her father's victims, what it cost my family, what it cost me. She opened her notebook. Then I asked if she wanted to help make sure other kids don't lose their parents to prison or suicide or shame. She's 12. I was 11. Nia showed me her notebook. Inside were 2 sets of handwriting, hers, precise and analytical, and someone else's, rounder and less confident. She's good at pattern recognition, better than most adults. She just needs direction. You're recruiting her. I'm giving her a choice. She can spend the rest of her childhood being Vincent's daughter, dealing with the shame and anger and confusion, or she can be someone who prevents other families from being destroyed the same way hers was. I thought about what Cassidy had said, about Nia needing people to keep her grounded. Does she know what this will cost her? I told her everything, including how it feels to stop being a normal kid, to see patterns everywhere, to carry the weight of all these cases. Nia closed her notebook. She said she's already not normal. Might as well make it count for something. There was a brutal logic to it, a kind of terrible sense. What about you? I asked. When do you get to stop carrying this weight? When there are no more Vincents. She smiled slightly. So never. But that's okay. This is what I'm good at. Cassidy came home from her bookstore shift and found us at the table. Still plotting to save the world? Someone has to, Nia said. Yeah, but does it have to be you? Who else would do it? It was a fair question. Without Nia, Vincent would still be scamming families. The other 6 predators would still be operating. How many lives had she saved with her obsessive pattern tracking? But at what cost to herself? That night, after Nia left at 6:32 p.m., she still kept to precise schedules. Cassidy asked me something I'd been avoiding. Do you think Nia's okay? Like, mentally okay? I don't know. She talks about patterns like other people talk about friends. She doesn't sleep much. She's always working on her next case. Cassidy twisted her hands together. I looked up savant syndrome, people who are exceptionally gifted in one area but struggle with normal social stuff. I think that's what she has. Or she's traumatized and brilliant and using both to create something meaningful. Can it be both? It probably was both. The doorbell rang at 10:15 p.m. Unusual. We weren't expecting anyone. I opened it to find Nia standing there, her clothes soaked from rain I hadn't noticed starting. I need help, she said. It was the first time she'd ever asked for anything. I pulled her inside, got her dry clothes, made her tea. She sat at our table shaking, not from cold, from something else. What happened? I made a mistake, a bad one. Her voice cracked. I was tracking a new case. Investment scheme targeting elderly people. I found the pattern, identified the perpetrator, gathered evidence. And I gave the information to a journalist instead of going through proper channels. I wanted to move faster, expose him before he could hurt more people. She looked up at me with wet eyes. He killed himself, left a note blaming me for destroying his life. His wife is suing me for defamation. His lawyer says I'm a vigilante who ruins people based on circumstantial evidence. My stomach dropped. Was he guilty? I thought so. The patterns matched perfectly. But now I'm second-guessing everything. What if I was wrong? What if I destroyed an innocent man's life? This was what I'd been afraid of. Nia operating with such certainty, such conviction, never considering the possibility of error. You need to stop, I said. I can't. You're 14. This isn't your responsibility. Then whose is it? She slammed her hand on the table. The police don't have time. The FBI is underfunded. Journalists are overworked. Someone has to do this. Not you. Not like this. Not at the cost of your childhood, your mental health, my dad is dead because nobody did this. My family fell apart because nobody was paying attention. Her voice rose. I pay attention. I see things other people miss. And yes, sometimes I make mistakes. But doing nothing is also a choice. And that choice has consequences too. Cassidy appeared in the doorway. What's going on? Nia thinks she might have destroyed an innocent man's life, I said. Did you? Cassidy asked her friend directly. I don't know anymore. I was so sure. But now, Nia's hands shook. What if I'm not as good at this as I thought? What if my patterns are just coincidences I've convinced myself matter? Show me the evidence, Cassidy said. What? You heard me. Show me what you found. Let's go through it together. For the next 3 hours, we sat at that table going through Nia's research. Bank records, transaction patterns, victim testimonies. Cassidy asked questions, challenged assumptions, forced Nia to explain every connection. By 1:30 a.m., the picture was clear. He was guilty, Cassidy said. Maybe not of everything you thought, but definitely of defrauding these people. The patterns don't lie. Then why did he kill himself? Because he was caught. Because he was facing consequences. Because he chose that instead of accountability. Cassidy looked at her friend. That's not on you. You didn't kill him. You exposed him. What he did after that was his choice. Nia started crying then. Real, deep sobs that seemed to come from somewhere she'd kept locked away for years. Cassidy held her while she broke down, whispering that it was okay, that she'd done the right thing, that she couldn't carry responsibility for other people's choices. I called Nia's mother. She arrived within 20 minutes, clearly terrified by my late-night call. When she saw her daughter crying, she sank to her knees. Baby, I'm so sorry. I've been so focused on my own pain. I didn't see yours. I killed someone, Nia sobbed. No, you didn't. You exposed someone who was hurting people. That's different. But I wondered if Nia would ever believe that. The lawsuit was eventually dropped. The journalist who published the story confirmed their own independent investigation had verified Nia's findings. The man had scammed 34 elderly people out of their retirement savings. But something in Nia had broken that night. She still came to our house on Tuesdays and Thursdays, still tracked patterns, still worked with Agent Brennan, but the absolute certainty was gone. She second-guessed herself now, triple-checked evidence, questioned her own observations. Is this better or worse? Cassidy asked me one day. I don't know. She's more careful, but she's also more haunted. Maybe that's what happens when you grow up. You stop being certain about everything. Maybe. Or maybe some people were never meant to carry the weight Nia had taken on. 2 years passed. Cassidy graduated high school with honors, got into the state university on a combination of scholarships and financial aid. My husband's business recovered. We'd never be wealthy, but we were stable. Nia turned 16. She'd created a nonprofit organization focused on identifying and reporting financial fraud. She had a team of volunteers, including Vincent's daughter, who proved to have a gift for data analysis. She'd helped take down 23 scammers and recovered over $8 million for victims, but she still didn't have any real friends besides Cassidy. Still arrived places at exact time, still saw patterns everywhere. Does it ever stop? She asked me once. Seeing the world as data to be analyzed? I don't know. Does it need to? I want to be normal sometimes. To not calculate probabilities of every conversation, to not predict how people will react before they do it. Then be normal, take a day off, go to a movie, eat ice cream, be a teenager. She tried. She really did. Went to a school dance, made small talk with classmates, pretended to care about who was dating whom. But halfway through the evening, she called me to pick her up. I can't do it, she said in the car. I watched couples dancing and all I could see were patterns. Who would break up within a month based on body language? Who was cheating based on phone checking frequency? I can't unsee it. Then don't. Be who you are. Who am I? It was the first time she'd asked that question. Maybe the first time she'd let herself wonder. You're someone who sees truth when others see surface. Someone who won't look away from problems just because they're hard. Someone who's been hurt and chose to prevent others from being hurt the same way. I pulled into her driveway. And yeah, you're different. Maybe you'll always be different. But different isn't wrong. She sat there for a long moment. My therapist says I need to process my dad's death. Stop trying to save the world as a substitute for saving him. What do you think? I think saving the world is easier than dealing with the fact that I couldn't save him, that I was just a kid and it wasn't my responsibility and I had no power to change what happened. She looked at me. But if I stop trying to save the world, what am I? A 16-year-old girl who deserves to have a life. But what if this is my life? What if this is what I'm meant to do? I didn't have an answer for that. Cassidy came home for Thanksgiving during her sophomore year. She'd changed majors 3 times, finally settling on social work. I want to help people, she explained. But not like Nia. I want to help them process trauma, not prevent it. Is she still coming over? Cassidy asked. Not as much. She's busy with her nonprofit. And you're not here to be her anchor. I worry about her. Me too. But Nia seemed to be finding her own way. She'd started dating someone, a quiet boy from her calculus class who didn't mind that she saw patterns everywhere. She was sleeping better, according to her mother. Actually going to therapy and working through her dad's death instead of just channeling everything into her crusade. Then Vincent got released early for good behavior. Nia called me at 2 a.m. I could hear the panic in her voice. He's out. Vincent's out. They let him out after 7 years instead of 15. Are you safe? It's not about me being safe. It's about him being out there, free to do it again. He's on probation, monitored. One wrong move and he goes back. You don't understand. People like Vincent don't stop. They can't. It's who they are. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that people could change. But I'd seen the recording of Vincent in his office, the way he'd manipulated my husband so effortlessly. Some people were wired to exploit others. What are you going to do? Watch him. Document everything. If he violates probation, I'll make sure he goes back. Nia, you can't spend your life following Vincent around. Why not? You spent your life raising Cassidy. My dad spent his life building a business. People dedicate themselves to things all the time. Those are different. How? Because they were healthier, more normal, not fueled by trauma and obsession. But saying that felt cruel. Just be careful, I said instead. Nia tracked Vincent for 3 months, documented his movements, his contacts, his activities. He got a job as a financial consultant, started dating a woman who owned a small business. He's doing it again, Nia told me. I can see the pattern. He's gaining her trust, learning about her finances. Give it another month and he'll be pitching her an investment opportunity, then report it to his probation officer. Based on what? He's allowed to have a job, allowed to date. I can't prove intent. Then there's nothing you can do. There's always something you can do. That's what scared me. I should have seen what was coming, should have recognized the shift in Nia's behavior, the way she stopped coming to our house, stopped answering calls, became fixated on Vincent to the exclusion of everything else. Cassidy noticed it first. She's spiraling. I tried to talk to her and she just rattled off statistics about recidivism rates and pattern persistence. Should we stage an intervention? With Nia, she'd calculate the probability of success and tell us we're wasting our time. We tried anyway. Showed up at her house with her mother, her boyfriend, Agent Brennan, sat her down and told her she needed to step back from the Vincent situation. Nia listened patiently, then pulled out her laptop and showed us everything she'd found. He's already meeting with his girlfriend's business partner, already talking about development opportunities, already showing the same red flags as 3 years ago. She looked at each of us. I can stop this before it starts, before another family is destroyed. Or you can live your life, her mother pleaded. Go to college, build a career, be happy. This is my career. This is what I'm good at. You're 17. You don't have to decide your entire life right now. My dad was 39 when he decided to drive into that telephone pole. How much time did he have? Nia's voice remained calm, analytical. Every moment we waste arguing is a moment Vincent uses to manipulate his next victim. So either help me stop him or get out of my way. We all looked at Agent Brennan. She was the professional. She could order Nia to back off. Instead, she said, "Show me what you have." 2 weeks later, they arrested Vincent for probation violation. He'd forged documents to secure a business loan, using the same methods as before. Nia had caught it, documented it, provided evidence. He went back to prison. This time, no early release. This time, the full sentence. Nia should have been triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she seemed hollow. It doesn't bring him back, she said when I asked how she felt. My dad's still dead. All those families are still broken. Vincent going to prison doesn't undo any of it. Then why do this? Because it's all I know how to do. She graduated high school at 17, skipping her senior year. Got into MIT's mathematics program with a full scholarship. Her nonprofit continued operating, now with a paid staff of 6 people, all focused on identifying financial predators. At her graduation party, which she insisted we keep small, I gave her a gift, a journal with a lock, like the one Robert had given me years ago. What's this for? For thoughts that aren't about patterns or predictions or saving the world, for being 17, for being human. She looked at it like it was a foreign object. I don't know what I'd write in here. Then maybe that's something to figure out. I don't know if she ever used it. We stayed in touch, but less frequently. She called on anniversaries. The day Vincent was arrested, the day her dad died, the day she first came to our house. Mechanical check-ins, making sure we were okay. Cassidy saw her occasionally when they were both home for holidays. She's gotten weirder, Cassidy reported. Like she's forgotten how to have normal conversations. Everything's about data and patterns and statistical probabilities. Is she happy? I don't think she knows how to be happy. She knows how to be useful. It's not the same thing. I thought about that conversation a lot over the years, about the cost of Nia's gift, about whether we'd done right by her, letting her channel her trauma into this obsessive crusade instead of forcing her to just be a kid. 10 years after Vincent's first arrest, Nia's nonprofit had become a national organization. They'd helped prosecute 187 financial predators and recovered over $40 million for victims. She'd been featured in Forbes, testified before Congress, advised the FBI on predictive algorithms for fraud detection. At 27, she was exactly what she'd set out to be. A pattern-seeing machine dedicated to preventing the kind of tragedy that had destroyed her family. But she lived alone, had no close relationships, worked 80-hour weeks, rarely smiled. Cassidy invited her to her wedding. Nia sent a card and a generous check but didn't attend. She said she's working on a big case, can't take time off. There's always a big case, I said. I know. My husband retired at 63. We traveled, saw places we'd talked about for decades, had grandchildren, built a life that was smaller than we'd once planned, but richer than we'd feared after the Vincent disaster. I thought about Nia often, wondered if she ever regretted the path she'd chosen, if she looked at our ordinary happy life and felt envy, or if she was genuinely content with her mission. On the 20th anniversary of her father's death, Nia called me. It was the first time she'd initiated contact in over a year. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay, I found my dad's pattern, before he died. I was analyzing old family data for a project, and I saw it. The behavioral changes, the financial stress, the warning signs. Her voice cracked. I could have predicted what he was going to do, if I'd been looking, if I'd known what to look for. You were 11. I know. Logically, I know. But I can't stop thinking, what if I'd been just a little smarter, just a little more observant? Could I have saved him? This was the wound at the center of everything, the question she'd been running from for 20 years. You couldn't have saved him, Nia. You were a child, but I'm not a child anymore. And I still can't save everyone. Vincent's daughter tried to kill herself last month. My best analyst burned out and quit. 3 of the cases we built fell apart because I miscalculated key variables. She was crying now, actually crying. What if I'm not actually good at this? What if I've been wrong all along? Come visit, I said. Come stay with us for a week. Take a break. I can't. There are 14 active cases that they can wait. You can't. She showed up 2 days later, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Cassidy came over with her kids. We made dinner, told stories, played board games, normal family things. Nia watched it all with those analytical eyes, but something was different. She was really seeing it, not just calculating patterns and probabilities, actually experiencing it. Is this what it's like? She asked me late that night. Having a normal life? This is what it's like having a life. I don't know about normal. I don't think I can do this, the whole family thing. I don't know how. You don't have to, but you could try having friends, hobbies, moments that aren't about saving the world. What if I'm only valuable because of what I do? What if without the mission, I'm just a weird girl who sees patterns? Then you're a weird girl who sees patterns, and that's okay too. She stayed for 5 days, played with Cassidy's kids, went to the movies, ate ice cream, tried being 27 instead of being the guardian of financial justice. On the last day, she asked if I still had that journal I'd given her. It's in your room, where you left it. She retrieved it, still in its original wrapping, unopened for 10 years. I think I'm ready to use it now. Yeah? Yeah. I need to figure out who I am beyond this, beyond the patterns and the mission and the crusade. She clutched the journal. I don't know if I can, but I need to try. I hugged her. This brilliant, damaged, extraordinary person who'd saved my family and countless others while sacrificing her own childhood. You're going to be okay, I said. How do you know? Pattern recognition. I've been watching you for 13 years. I see who you are beneath all the armor. She laughed. Actually laughed. You can't beat me at my own game. Watch me. Nia went back to her work, her nonprofit, her mission. But something had shifted. She hired a therapist who specialized in gifted individuals and trauma, started setting boundaries on work hours, took weekends off occasionally. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. She was still Nia, analytical, pattern-obsessed, driven to prevent harm, but she was also learning to be human, to have moments that weren't about data or predictions or saving the world. Cassidy told me she'd started dating someone, another mathematician who understood her brain and didn't need her to be normal. Is she happy? I asked. I think she's learning how to be. That's something. That was everything. 23 years after Nia first walked into our house with mismatched socks and a bag of dirt, she called with news. I'm stepping down from the nonprofit. Staying on as an advisor, but someone else is taking over day-to-day operations. Why? Because I've spent my entire adult life trying to prevent what happened to my family from happening to others. And I need to acknowledge that I can't save everyone. I can't predict every disaster. I can't carry all of this forever. What will you do? I don't know. Maybe teach, maybe research, maybe just exist without constantly analyzing existence. She paused. I'm scared. This mission has been my identity for so long. Without it, I don't know who I am. Then I guess you get to find out. She laughed, that rare, genuine sound. You know what's funny? I can predict almost anything except my own future. All my models, all my patterns, they break down when I try to apply them to myself. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you're not supposed to predict your own life. Just live it. That sounds terrifying. It is. But it's also kind of wonderful. I don't know how Nia's story ends. She's 37 now, still brilliant, still seeing patterns everywhere. But she also has friends, relationships, hobbies. She journals. She takes vacations. She exists as more than just a pattern recognition machine. Sometimes I think about that 14-year-old girl who appeared at our door with perfect predictions and notebooks full of calculations, who saved my daughter from a drug conviction, who saved our family from financial ruin, who dedicated her entire adolescence to preventing the kind of tragedy that had destroyed her own childhood. And I wonder what her life might have been like if she'd been allowed to just be a kid. If her dad hadn't died, if Vincent had never existed, if trauma hadn't forged her into something brilliant and broken. But then I think about the 187 families who didn't lose everything because of her work, the patterns she identified, the predators she stopped, the lives she saved. And I realize maybe she was never meant to be ordinary. Maybe some people are born to see patterns the rest of us miss, to carry weight most of us couldn't handle, to sacrifice their own normal for something larger. Cassidy still calls her on Tuesdays and Thursdays, old habit from when Nia used to show up at exactly 3:47 p.m. She's doing okay, Cassidy tells me. Better than okay. She's actually figuring out how to be happy. Good. She asked about you. Wanted to know if you still thought she was weird. What did you tell her? That you never thought she was weird. Just extraordinary. And that's the truth. Nia was never weird. She was a child genius shaped by tragedy, who chose to channel her pain into preventing others from experiencing the same. She was a girl who saw patterns in chaos and used that gift to save people, even at tremendous cost to herself. She was, simply, extraordinary. My husband passed away last year. Heart attack, sudden and unexpected. At the funeral, Nia showed up. First time I'd seen her in person in over a year. She didn't say much, just sat beside me, held my hand, and let me cry. Afterward, she said, I ran the patterns. His health data, lifestyle factors, genetic markers. I should have seen this coming. No, you shouldn't have. Some things aren't patterns. Some things are just life. I know. Logically, I know. But you're still you. Still trying to make sense of chaos by finding order. I squeezed her hand. And that's okay. But you can't predict everything. Sometimes you just have to feel it. She cried then. We both did. For my husband. For her dad. For all the things we couldn't prevent no matter how smart we were or how many patterns we saw. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For letting me be weird. For not trying to fix me or make me normal. For just accepting that this is who I am. You saved my family, Nia. The least I could do was not try to change you. Still, thank you. We stayed in touch after that. Regular calls, occasional visits. She brought her partner around, a quiet woman who worked in data science and understood Nia's need to see patterns in everything. Are you happy? I asked her during one visit. She thought about it for a long moment. I'm content. I've learned to live with who I am, to use my abilities without letting them consume me, to have relationships even though I can predict how they'll likely end, to be extraordinary and human at the same time. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also my life. And for the first time, I'm actually living it instead of just analyzing it. That was more than I'd ever hoped for her. Cassidy's daughter turned 14 last month. Sharp, observant, sees patterns her classmates miss. She reminds me of Nia, Cassidy told me. Should I be worried? Only if she starts showing up places at exact times carrying notebooks full of calculations. She does carry notebooks everywhere. Then yes, maybe be a little worried. We laughed about it. But I thought about Nia, about the path trauma and brilliance had set her on, about whether Cassidy's daughter might follow a similar trajectory. I hope not. I hope she gets to be ordinary, to see patterns but not be consumed by them, to be smart without being burdened. But if she does turn out like Nia, I hope she finds people who will let her be extraordinary without trying to make her normal, who will support her mission while making sure she doesn't lose herself in it, who will remind her that being human is just as important as being brilliant, because that's what Nia taught me, that the weird kids, the different ones, the ones who see what others miss, they need us to accept them as they are while also making sure they don't sacrifice everything in pursuit of their vision. It's a delicate balance, one I'm not sure we always got right with Nia, but we tried, and she survived, and that's something. 25 years after a strange girl with mismatched socks first walked into our house, I got a package in the mail. Inside was a journal, the one I'd given Nia all those years ago. It was filled now, cover to cover, not with patterns or predictions or case notes, with thoughts, feelings, moments of being human instead of being a pattern recognition machine. There was a note attached. Thank you for teaching me that I could be both extraordinary and ordinary, that I could save the world and still have a life. That being weird wasn't wrong. I'm finally learning to believe it. Nia. I cried reading it. All those years, all that worry, all the fear that we'd somehow failed her by not forcing her to be normal. But we hadn't failed. We'd just been patient while she figured out how to be herself. And in the end, That was enough. Cassidy came over that afternoon and I showed her the journal. She read through it, tears streaming down her face. She's okay, Cassidy whispered. She's actually okay. Yeah, she is. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she'd never come to our house? If we'd never met her? All the time. Would we have survived the Vincent thing? Probably not. We'd have lost everything. Cassidy might have ended up in jail. Our family would have imploded. So she saved us. Yeah, she did. But who saved her? That was the question, wasn't it? Nia had spent her entire adolescence saving others. But who had saved her? Maybe no one. Maybe she'd had to save herself. Or maybe we all saved each other in small ways. I gave her acceptance. Cassidy gave her friendship. Her mother gave her unconditional love even when she didn't understand. Her therapist gave her tools. Her partner gave her companionship. Maybe salvation isn't one big moment. Maybe it's 1,000 small moments of connection, understanding, acceptance. Maybe Nia saved herself by letting us help her, by finally accepting that she didn't have to carry everything alone. I called her that night. I got your journal. I know. I had tracking on the package. Of course she did. Thank you for sharing it with me. Thank you for everything, for not trying to fix me, for not thinking I was broken just because I was different. You were never broken, Nia. Just hurt. There's a difference. I know that now. It took me 25 years, but I know it. We talked for an hour. About her work, her life, her plans. She sounded lighter, like the weight she'd been carrying since she was 11 had finally shifted enough that she could breathe. I'm writing a book, she said, about pattern recognition and human behavior, but also about trauma and healing and learning to be human despite everything. Will you talk about us? About what happened with Vincent? Only if you're okay with it. I changed names, details, but the core story, yeah, it's there. Because it's part of my story. Part of how I learned that being extraordinary doesn't mean you can't be wrong. That seeing patterns doesn't mean you can predict everything. That saving others starts with saving yourself. I'm okay with it. If it helps someone else, I'm okay with it. It will. At least, the patterns suggest it will. We both laughed. Some things never change. Nia would always see patterns, would always analyze, would always try to make sense of chaos. But now she could also just be, could exist without constantly trying to predict and prevent and protect. And that, more than anything, was what I'd hoped for her all along. Cassidy's daughter asked about Nia recently, wanted to know what she was like as a teenager. She was different, I said. Brilliant and damaged and trying to save the world while forgetting to save herself. But she's okay now? Yeah, she figured it out eventually. How long did it take? About 25 years. That's a long time. Some things take a long time. Healing, growing, learning to be human. You can't rush it. Is she still trying to save the world? In her own way. But now she also knows how to save herself. That's the lesson Nia taught me. That you can be extraordinary and still need saving. That brilliance doesn't protect you from pain. That seeing patterns doesn't mean you have all the answers. And that sometimes, the weird kids with their notebooks and mismatched socks and unsettling predictions are exactly who we need in our lives. Not because they're perfect, but because they're willing to carry weight the rest of us can't. To see dangers we'd miss. To sacrifice their own normal for something larger. As long as we remind them they're still human. Still deserving of love and connection and moments of ordinary joy. Nia came to visit last month. We sat in my backyard, the same one where she'd collected leaves with surgical precision 27 years ago. Do you ever think about that first day, I asked, when Cassidy brought you home? All the time. I was so sure of everything back then. Every prediction, every pattern, every intervention. She smiled. I had no idea how little I actually knew. You saved us anyway. I got lucky. The patterns held, but they could have just as easily been wrong. I could have destroyed your family instead of saving it. But you didn't. No, I didn't. But not because I was infallible. Because I was willing to act on imperfect information, to take risks, to believe my observations even when I couldn't prove them. She looked at me. That's what I teach my students now. That pattern recognition isn't about being right all the time. It's about being willing to be wrong while still trying to help. Your students are lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have them. They keep me honest, keep me human, remind me that brilliance without humility is just arrogance. We sat in comfortable silence, watching birds in the maple tree, the same tree she'd collected leaves from all those years ago. I'm proud of you, I said finally. For what? For becoming someone who can sit quietly in a backyard without analyzing bird flight patterns or calculating optimal nesting locations. She laughed. Oh, I'm definitely still doing that. I just don't talk about it as much. That's growth. That's therapy. We both smiled. Some things never change. Nia would always be Nia. Brilliant, analytical, pattern-obsessed. But she'd also learned to be more, to have relationships, to experience joy, to accept that she didn't have to save everyone to matter. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.